was such a inspirational city, but I only move here if the record company buys a house for me. Yeah.
Okay. What I read about your album, Eat Me, Drink Me, is that it's your most personal album so far. What makes it so personal for you?
Well, I think that people find it to be more personal, and it may be because, and this is what I've realized now looking back at it, showing such a human side of myself, maybe me admitting how inhuman I view myself, and I associated with a lot of different themes that weren't themes that I could pick because I didn't write in a way that I was contemplating things that had happened to me as much as I was just writing as they happened. So Eat Me, Drink Me, the title, of course, has a reference to Lewis Carroll, but only because I was writing about Lewis Carroll. Not so much that I wanted to make a point of that, as much as, themes like cannibalism, vampirism. It was much more because I was in a place where I didn't feel like I had a reason to live, and that was a lot different than in other times in my life when I've been very destructive. I realized that I wanted to die, but that has a certain determination to it. Not wanting to live just is devoid of any feeling, and I didn't know at the time until I can look back now that I was unhappy being me. And it was because, in one part, the obligations or the concept of marriage made me fall into a feeling that I was supposed to separate myself from what I create. And when I started to separate myself from what I create, I started to allow both to die. I didn't want to be creative and I didn't want to live. And this record is me discovering myself again. So it's not about the car crash of my life as much as it's about me rising from the fire of that.
What I really like is the melodic side. I just listened to it.
Thank you.
The first time, and it reminds me a little bit to the Mechanical Animals album you did. It's more positive from the vibe, what I heard. It's not like this very dark and very like Hollywood, for example.
Well, some people, a lot of people initially hear the record as being very dark, but I don't hear it as being dark in the sense that it's negative or it's depressing in the way that I found myself coming out of feeling that way. So the record to me is very much me identifying with myself. So it's only dark in that I'm comfortable with me being a dark person, with me relating to the vampire mythology and the fact that this is a creature that can only die by stabbing it through the heart, and me realizing, well, the only thing that made me vulnerable was romance and love. So as cliched or expected as that has always been for me, I always thought it was too obvious to associate myself with something like the vampire fictional character. That finally it became like I couldn't avoid the obvious anymore because it's what suits me best and it's what I'm meant to excel at. So all the attempts that I made to escape myself, I think when I only wanted to dedicate myself to making films or I only wanted to dedicate myself to painting, and I almost decided to give up making music, I didn't realize at the time that I was just trying to run away from being me. And it's the unfortunate circumstance that I believed that I was in a relationship that was something different than what I wanted. It doesn't mean that it wasn't true or it wasn't real. It just means that everything that I'd always represented myself as wanting to be, or everything that I fought against falling prey to, as far as allowing society to try and decide how I was going to live my life, were the unfortunate side effects of the end of my relationship. Not the relationship itself, but the idea that I was suddenly expected to be someone I wasn't, and I started to think everything about me that I know now defines me as a person and as an artist, which should never be separate, are not false, because I thought they were false. So it took me being prepared to be alone in life, being prepared to realize that I may have made the most terrible mistake ever, and all of the emotions that go with that, but also feeling like I was in a place where I had no emotions. I couldn't feel anything. I had no fear. I had no desire. I had nothing. That I had to rediscover myself making this record, and I rediscovered myself wanting to just be able to affect one person with a song. And one of the first songs I sang was Just a Car Crash Away. And I had eliminated, unintentionally, I had nobody in my life. I had no friends, I had nothing. And one of the only people that was friends with me is my girlfriend now, Evan, who at the time was someone that I played the song for, and I saw that it really made her feel something, and I felt like for the first time I could feel something. And I think that I, for my whole life, my whole career, avoided the simplest way of writing songs, that you should write songs to communicate with people. So I don't regret not doing that sooner, but a part of me thinks what I could have accomplished up till this point, but it gives me a hope, and at the time it gave me a challenge that I had not even come close to fulfilling my ability, and as a songwriter, as a singer.
Okay, you said marriage was a mistake. Did I get that wrong? Did you read?
Well, the circumstance of my marriage was a mistake. I don't think that marriage itself is a mistake, but the circumstance of marriage, when it took place in my life, and just the idea of what happened with my marriage was a mistake. It's unfortunate. My relationship, I don't think it was a mistake. I didn't really change my feelings about her, and it's only unfortunate that I started to be in a situation where I didn't feel good about being myself, and I don't blame that on anybody but me. And so as far as getting married again, it could always happen, but more importantly, I realized that I don't have to make that gesture to express to somebody how I feel about them. And I think in part making this record made me realize that I can tell somebody how I feel about them in a song, and it's much more powerful than doing something conventional that everybody in society does.